I'm talking to Peter McManners, author of Green Outcomes in a Real World, on the subject of a civilized agenda, a sustainable alternative to globalization. Okay. Peter, for many organizations, the idea of globalization is all too real. They're focused on the challenge of selling their products and services in China, in the far-flung parts of the world, and that really drives a lot of their activities and a lot of their concerns. What is the alternative?
Well, some aspects of globalization are inevitable. I mean, we can instantly talk to people on the other side of the planet. That's a technology we now have. We're not going to suddenly turn our backs on that. Mm-hmm. But other aspects, economic globalization is a positive choice that we've made. And so the IMF and the World Bank, when they come in and they champion free trade and deregulation and open markets, it is a policy choice that's taken. Now, the trouble with that is it's an economic policy with quite a narrow focus and a short-term time horizon. And what we're seeing some good growth has come through from that, but now we're starting to see the challenges of that. And I think business is starting to see that long supply chains are risky. Fukushima showed that. Governments are starting to see that trying to retain social cohesion within this new world can be a struggle. And so what you have is things are changing, and so there is a limit to growth. All right, in the 1970s, the Club of Rome wrote about the limit to growth. Well, one of the authors looked back at that fairly recently and confirmed that we are on track to collapse the economy and the ecosystem in the middle of this century. Now, that should worry us, tremendously worry us. We also have limits to resources. So we talk about the end of oil, and we're almost forgetting it because we still have oil, but there is an end to oil, and we can't avoid that, and other resources. And the final thing is that there is a limit to the environmental degradation that we're willing to accept. So things will change, and it's going to be different.
Okay. I mean, in terms of the difference, you have this idea that you call subsidiarity. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, it's a long-standing concept, subsidiarity, and it's the idea that it's human nature to be able to find balance in affairs, which at the lowest levels becomes completely intuitive of family and small communities. And then as you grow up into bigger communities, you can still, people know each other, people can negotiate the balance of what's the right thing to do. But when you get up to higher levels and you get away from that human direct relationship, it starts to break down. So what subsidiarity says is that you leave control at the lowest level that is possible depending on what it is you're controlling. So people at high level delegate and release control, and it's not just in politics. It comes up. My early career was in the military, and you have mission command in the military, which says you just set the parameters and you allow people to get on and do what is best within the parameters they find available to them. So it's quite a universal thing that good decisions are taken if you can push them down to a low level. That's subsidiarity.
Right. Okay. And I guess that plays on the fact that engaging people right across the company, if it's a company, so engaging people across the company, or indeed within a society, is something that we should be aiming to do. And equally, when governments and other organisations try to introduce compliance and governance systems to control, these never really work.
You're always, if you try and control through regulation, I mean, of course there's a good place for regulation, but if you can engage people with the right behaviour and the buy-in, then they will find those solutions. That's why human society is so very successful. But if you trounce that with regulations or ideas that kind of are contrary to that, and one of those is the narrow economic focus is only a little bit of the game. If you allow that too much dominance, then you can unwind some of the ability we have to do things to the best and do them properly.
Yes, yeah, okay. So what is the balance? How do you balance this idea of subsidiarity or localism with the kind of nation state and the hierarchy?
Well, the nation state is the most powerful actor in the game here. You mentioned subsidiarity and localism. Localism it's very interesting because when you start thinking through sustainability, you're immediately attracted by localising a lot more activities, and you do need to localise a lot more activities. But if you take your policy as localisation, and you read, there's a few books written from a much green perspective that argue for that. You read those and you go, well, this doesn't add up, does it? Because quite a few things actually are better allowed to move to global level. You have certain global resource flows which are quite sensible and appropriate. So the narrow focus on globalisation is an error and doesn't work, and narrow focus on localisation doesn't work. What you need to do is to do the appropriate activities in the right place, controlled at the right level.
Right.
So it's neither globalisation or localisation. And that's the secret.
Yes, yeah. I warm to that a lot because I think a lot of organisations, particularly multinationals, some of what they're doing actually reflects that. They've talked about, we're working across borders and we have major centres in Hong Kong and other places, but the reality is that they're making policy in the UK or in the US and kind of assuming that's working for their subsidiary companies elsewhere. So I would think that would be something they would understand.
Yes, I think they do understand, and understanding it's becoming even more important because the situation that they work within, the business works within, is changing and must change. Because what you can say about sustainability is that it is a kind of non-negotiable part of the future. Lots of scenarios of the future, but that's the one which really has to be so, because of course we want society to continue and civilization to continue. So sustainability will win out, and when it does, the multinational corporations, the global corporations, to understand that they need to behave as local companies, be seen as local companies. Absolutely, it's vital.